Hello, my friends. I'd like to read a poem for you today in honor of Samhain or Halloween, as many call it. This was written in 2010 and was published in a book of poetry in 2019, right before COVID happened. So it never had a public reading. I never did any public readings for my book. So this is the first public reading I'm actually doing for this book. This poem is called A Ritual of Heathens. The ground elk, cranberries, hickory nuts, and egg yolks squished through her small hands like Play-Doh. A giggle escaped as if through a steam valve opening. She clamped down on it quickly, whipping her head side to side to see who might be watching. Aunt Esther would have been yelling at me by now for playing with the soul cakes, she echoed to herself. The former, momentary elation quickly overtaken by the feeling of loss of her beloved aunt. She patted out each of the 6 patties. There, one for John, sweet, sweet boy, shaking her head with a faraway smile. One for Tommy, she said with a grimace, then a shrug of acceptance. One for Mark's mom, one for poor rich old Mrs. Courtney, and one for Aunt Esther, a tear escaping the corral of her eye that she shepherded quickly onto her handkerchief. And then one for all the rest who have passed this year. She laid the neat, round embodiments out in a line and sprinkled salt lightly on each patty's face. Salt to honor your blooding's course, salt to cleanse your holding's pain, salt to pay you for your teachings, salt to lead you home again, the invocation chanted as the old family rote coursed. Then she sprinkled time on each, a sweet and gentle passage on you, each and every blessed soul. Time make your hearts forgiving and your spirits once more whole. She thought about Tommy and her dad, always at one another's throats. They would bellow and snort at each other like 2 elk stags she had watched fighting, locking horns and threatening to take out almost every dinner table at which they sat together. She threw a little extra time on Tommy's, blew a time dervish into the air to her father, wherever he might be. She continued, onion powder to remember what you shed, a little pepper to recall what gave you mission, some garlic to remember patient sweetness and honor where you took your visions. Finally, she sprinkled sage on them each. Love honored as eternal, this life's journey just one kiss. Sage to help release you from what you think you couldn't miss. Her mother's joke that she bet old Mrs. Courtney had all her servants put to death, embalmed, and put in her mausoleum with her casket made her shake her head at the thought of one being so ornery and greedy. Or is Mrs. Courtney just in too much pain, she wondered. She remembered how she didn't even seem to be able to butter toast for herself. How could one so dependent not be close enough to see the aching pain in others, she said to herself. She lit some piled sage on the mantel and let its gentle blanket soothe her unquiet. She fried the cherished healing cakes up in butter and oil. Well, a little fat is not going to hurt you now, is it, sweet William? She remembered the young neighbor boy so large that his parents had to cut a larger front door on their house because he had to work to get through the regular one. She thought of the slow-minded boy joyfully feeding squirrels peanuts in their yard. His excitement and zeal, squeals that stopped the squirrels in their tracks but didn't keep them from the nuts. She smiled, envisioning him floating lighter than air, now able to look at the birdies in the treetop nests that seemed to obsess him. She fixed each one a plateful. She gave them each a soul cake on a buttermilk biscuit, except John's on a white flour tortilla, a potato salad scoop and 2 apple quarters, and a pile of steaming bitter greens with oil and vinegar and lemon. She put on some special imported Greek figs just for Aunt Esther. She arranged them on the table by the fireplace at the head of all the other tables, then lit all the candles in the great welcoming room. She made sure everyone was ready to receive the Samhain guests, especially this year's passing ones, so that they could all dine and dance together for the next 3 days as they said their Godspeeds and bon voyages. Then each could start the fresh new year with fewer bones rattling in their closets. Have a happy Samhain.